And you can see how man has the power, or yogis, over earth, air, water, fire, and ether. And that's really a true definition of a yogi. A yogi who can create miracles, who can heal. Jesus was a yogi. Moses was a yogi. Guru Nanak was a yogi. Lord Shiva was a yogi. They had power over the elements. Does that mean you just become some bossy person and you stop water whenever you want to, or you start fire? No. Because you're so in tune with Creator, when you get to that elevated space, that all you want to do is serve. And that's the truth of the yogi. A yogi may have spent his life in a cave, but not for himself. Not he was acquiring the perfect down dog and the perfect this and the perfect that. He practiced because that's how he kept his body, mind, and spirit whole. And I was going to say he rolled up mats, but there were no mats to roll up. Maybe he rolled his leopard skin up. And he ate little. He breathed deep, and he prayed. And there's still many yogis in caves now in India and in Tibet that just hold this world in deep prayer. Maybe they're more effective than all of us running around the planet, I don't know. But it isn't our lifetime to just be in a cave in the Himalayas now. It's our lifetime to be successful on the earth. And I used to beg Yogi Bhajan at the beginning, like in 1970 to 72, please, I don't want to get married. I just don't want to. And believe me, before I had been a hippie, so it wasn't like I thought I was going to miss out on something. I'd been there and done that. So it was like, I just want to be at your feet and just serve. And he said, you've done that so many lifetimes. This lifetime you got to get married, you got to work, you got to earn money, and you have to match the heavens to the earth. And that's with most of you here. You perhaps have been yogis, and probably you all have been, otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here this morning. But this time around, you need to live in the world, but no, we're not of the world. And that's the biggest accomplishment now. In many ways, it's easy to own nothing. In many ways, it can even be easy to be celibate, because you have an absolute. And you just eat little, meditate, and do very small things. But when you have to go to Wall Street, or whatever the equivalent out here is, or you have to earn a living, or raise a family, and do conscious eating and conscious communication, that's the challenge for all of us. So when I begged him to not have me get married, because he did a lot of match marriages, he said, no, you've done that before. And so in our marriage of almost 35 years, and the blessings of having a daughter who's also a yogi and a yoga teacher now, I can see where his truth was so deep. I needed to accomplish that I could stay married, that I could go through what everyone goes through in that commitment, that I could be the best mother and the best parent possible, and also the best teacher. So he truly was my teacher. He didn't mandate just the same thing for everyone. When he would see you, he would know exactly all your 8.4 million lifetimes. He saw you clearer than anybody else I ever knew in my life, and he knew the direction you had to go. And he drove you to that direction. We call him a Saturn teacher, because he drove us. He broke us down. He broke our egos down. And wherever there was a fine place that needed to be tweaked, he tweaked it. For me, growing up, I always thought I was mentally retarded. I know it sounds weird, but I thought that my parents whispered behind my back, and teachers thought there was something wrong with me. And so I always went through those first years thinking there was really something wrong. There was a deficit inside of me. And it wasn't until I grew up to see what the deficit was, and it wasn't such a deficit after all. It was a meditative mind that I was born with. And when I was small, I used to sit a lot. And my parents were middle Western Christians who, you don't sit, you do. Your worth is how much you could get accomplished, and what your worth was what you could do this lifetime. And for them, it was us to go to college because they weren't educated. It was all of those things, those stereotype things in the 40s and 50s that they held as standards of a good life. And from the beginning, I knew it wasn't it. And so I used to just sit. And they called me Mary Sit and Do Nothing. That was my, label. And when I think back, I was meditating. They say, oh, she's so spaced. So they took me to I don't think there were psychiatrists then, maybe there were in the 40s, somebody, and there were no testing. You know, all the machines they do now to see where you're at, if you're bipolar or da-da-da-da-da. But they just said that they didn't know what was wrong with me. But I went with that, and I'm sure some of you can identify with this, that people always thought there was something wrong with you. I loved gymnastics. There was no yoga at that time. Never did I hear that word. I never even studied India. I knew it was somewhere way far away, but it was a third world country, and you shouldn't even talk about it. So I had a whole gymnastics set up in my backyard because we didn't have very much money, which, by the way, if you think you have to have a lot of money to raise amazing children, you don't. It's such a stupid thing. We became so creative, the 4 kids in my family, and to this day, we're 77, 75, 73, 71. We're the most creative, healthy family that I know of. Because we didn't have a lot, so we had to invent our style, our clothing. We had to cut things up, my sister and I, and sew them. And when we wanted to take gymnastics, there weren't any money, so we said, okay. We set up a whole gymnastic off the picnic table with the mattress. We did double flips. We did every single thing, and probably even more than you'd learn in a formal gymnastics. We couldn't take dance, that's okay. We'll teach ourselves dancing. And so we did all this creative stuff that I think helped me as a human being. So don't deny your children their imagination. I grew up with no television. I grew up with no phone. I grew up with no running water. We were so blessed because our imagination went wild. Every summer in the barn we'd have circuses. I put on plays. I put on these summer programs for kids. I didn't charge any money, but they would come and we'd make drums out of coffee cans and bicycle tires, and then we'd march down the street and put on parades and make costumes, and it was so creative that when my life ran many, many different ways as a hippie, living in India, living in Mexico, living on Maui, and just doing organic things with nothing, I was so good at it. And I don't think I would have been if I hadn't had that freedom of imagination, of writing plays and putting kids in plays and making scenery. I mean, people thought I was a little nutty, and I don't know what they think of me now because I don't know anybody. Not one person that I grew up with, except my brother, my 2 brothers, and my sister. And they used to think I was nutty too. But now they don't. They really, really love me a lot. And they just see that we are all in full acceptance of each other, even though our lives in many ways turned out differently, but in many ways turned out the same. And I can really thank first my mother. She was from Sicily, and she was just a grassroots, very sensitive and actually very intuitive. She was a devout Christian, and she loved Jesus. And to this day, I can feel her spirit, and I can feel what she brought to this small little family in the middle of Illinois. So I dedicate this class to my family, where I often tell people, even when they tell me really the saddest stories I've ever heard in my life about their family. In fact, I heard one yesterday, and I said, you know what? Bless them, because you're sitting here today. And if you hadn't gone through perhaps all that pain, all that strife, all the emotional that you came with, you wouldn't have longed. You would just be ordinary, doing ordinary things and following exactly what your parents did. And that's sad, because every generation is asked to step it up a little. And if there wasn't yoga in this Western world, what would we be doing? If we had never heard of meditation, what would we be doing? We're so blessed. And if you hadn't had perhaps a miserable childhood, you wouldn't be sitting here. So forget all the stuff and just start saying thank you for everything and anything that ever happened to you, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. You'd be out there, whatever people do on Sunday morning. Starbucks. Okay, so today is Sunday, and we're going to do something for the sun of the day. Okay? Let's bring our hands together and thank you so much.